Nearly 40 years ago, a young woman was strangled to death and discarded down an embankment. For 40 years, this woman's identity has remained a mystery. Who was she? Where was she from? And why did this happen to her?
She was found by a hiker near the Independence Trail area, and after he found her, he contacted the sheriff's office and arranged to meet with deputies and investigators, and that hiker showed them exactly where she was found. She was believed to have been there for at least a week, up to 10 days, and other estimates put it out to even up to 35 days before she was found by that hiker.
So we're at the scene of where our Jane Doe was found on July 8th of 1984, alongside of Highway 49 near the South Yuba Bridge. Back then, the victim would have been found probably about 50 yards down this hill, wedged up underneath a manzanita brush. And we had to base that off of rough guesses as to which brushes, trees, and other foliage would have been here about 40 years ago. So we believe, based on that and the slope of the terrain here, that the body would have come to rest somewhere further down, like I said, about 50 meters.
Based on autopsy reports, she was killed by ligature strangulation and blunt force trauma to the head. Jane is a Caucasian, a white female with about shoulder length brown hair. She's believed to be between 18 to 30 years old, so we believe she's early to mid 20s in age, and she was about between 5 feet and 5 feet 8 inches tall. It's hard to get an exact height on someone when they're either complete skeletal or near skeletal remains, based on the lack of the soft tissue, like the muscles, fat, and things like that, that add to our overall height. And so estimations on height can vary depending on level of decomposition. And again, with the time of death being up to 30 days, would have put her about the beginning of June, which we still think is it's important to recognize that the clothing she was wearing were not necessarily didn't necessarily match the climate, and so we're not certain as to whether or not she was from this area or if potentially she was brought here from another cooler climate type of area. Some of the types of clothing she was wearing were smaller. She was wearing the size 8 pants, size 5 shoes, and one of the shirts she was wearing, we know, was a size large, however, men's button-up shirt. And one of the more distinctive pieces of clothing that she was wearing was like a long sleeve red cotton shirt with an embroidered tiger face on the front of it. And then right below that was the word tiger that was also embroidered. That was one of the most distinctive items of clothing that she was wearing, because the tiger shirt, it didn't have a tag. The tag had been removed from it. I believe that very identifiable, and we're hoping that someone out there will recognize that image. Another, I believe, easily identifiable item that was found on her was a gold kind of floral design ring with a oval-shaped opal stone, which we still have in our evidence unit. So over the last 40 years, the case continues to be investigated. Her DNA is in CODIS, and that's the Combined DNA Indexing System, which is a national database for DNA. However, there's been no matches. Recently, her profile has been uploaded to the NamUs website, which is a National Missing and Unidentified Person System. It's a case searchable database that's also available to members of the public to search, as well as law enforcement to compare and cross-reference cases. Many of those potential matches have also been ruled out, or we're still working on them. And we've been partnering with our federal law enforcement agencies, as well as to try and identify her. This case has also been entered into VICAP, which is the Violent Offender Apprehension Project that is administered through the FBI to try and develop leads based on MO. One of the most difficult aspects of this case in particular is that the scene consisted of basically the side of the hill on the shoulder of the roadway, and so there wasn't a whole lot of physical evidence recovered from the scene. However, we believe that the evidence that we did recover from her body and clothing ultimately will be what unlocks this mystery. Personally, I find it heartbreaking that we don't even know who she is for this long, and so if nothing else, I want to bring some closure to her, as to even being able to identify her.
This was someone's daughter, a daughter that simply vanished with no closure ever provided to her family. If you recognize this woman or her clothing or jewelry, please call now. Bring closure to Jane Doe.